Welcome everyone, this is Joanna Washington with some information about Parent-Teacher Feedback Day. Your voices were heard from last year and we're no longer creating those videos for each and every family. When we look at Parent-Teacher Feedback Day, we're going to provide families with some type of feedback from their teachers. All families have a right to be informed about their child and instruction. Teachers will do this by identifying our students in priority groups. And depending on where those students fall in the priority groups, they will have either a virtual conference, phone call, or an email with a general video. This keeps in line with our strategic plan here at Gunston to operationalize equity, partner with families, standards-based grading, and learning. By the end of this video, you should be able to navigate the Parent-Teacher Feedback Day spreadsheet. You should be able to create your own planning calendar to keep up with those tasks that need to be completed. You can follow the timeline and understand what is needed at each juncture and know where to enter your questions should you have any of those. Let's start with a few important dates. Today is October 4th and we're starting this process. We're hoping that teachers can identify those students that they want to prioritize as red by October 7th. We want you to finish that spreadsheet by October 12th, but if you can finish it earlier, that will be fine also. You can start making those phone calls around October 12th to those students that are prioritized in yellow, and counselors will start the process of scheduling those conferences for those students that have 3 or more red identifications. October 18th, you can start scheduling your own conferences, your individual non-counselor conferences. Please do not start before the 18th. This gives the counselors 1 week to schedule the ones that they have to schedule first, and then you can schedule yours after the 18th. October 22nd is our day of conference. This is the day you're going to share your video, that one general video for parents of those students that are prioritized in green. And to that, you're also going to attach a Google form that will be provided to you somewhere around next week. You're given until October 29th to finish all of the communication that is necessary for our Parent-Teacher Feedback Day. Now, we should all have access to this timeline. I want to review this document with you so that you can see what's in it, what's valuable, and what are some things you just need to keep in mind. When we start this process, the first link we have here is the explanation of how to prioritize our students in case you had questions about that. Here where it says Tuesday, October 5th, and I'm sorry, yes, today is Tuesday, October 5th, not Monday, October 4th. I am back in time. And when you're listening to this, who knows what day it is anyway. But you have access to all 3 of our spreadsheets, but you want to focus on your grade level. Since I am an 8th grade teacher, I have access to some of the fields in the 8th grade spreadsheet. So we'll look at this spreadsheet and look at some key tips on what to do when filling this out. When you enter the spreadsheet, you'll see the list of all students in 8th grade or the particular grade of the spreadsheet you've clicked on. You'll see those columns for teacher name and another column that just has the content. And this is where you're going to enter that category that you're going to place the student, either red, yellow, or green. A tip to help before you start this process is to have one of your class lists with you, and looking at the names on the class list, go through first and identify all the students you teach. Now, since I'm a math teacher, I'm going to work on this math column. So I've gone through and I identified, this is my first student. I identified my name next to the student. I went down the list and did that. Second, once I have all of my names, I'm going to go back and enter those categories. You can do this at the same time if you have that information, but it may be easier to just go through and identify first and come back. When I go through, I will look at this student and enter the category. And you'll see it does change colors based on the name that you use. Then I have another student. I'll enter this category and another and this. So as you go through this, you'll see those colors change. Each teacher is going to do the same thing. You can see Ms. Kill has already started this process. Looks like Ms. Robles has, Ms. Delgado. So we have teachers that are in here, and you'll see this information. And at the end, this is where counselors are going to start looking through the full list. They're going to look at this on Friday, October the 8th, just to see how many students have 3 or more reds, and they're going to identify either yes or no. Yes will mean that they will schedule a conference. They'll put the conference date and time next to it, or it will be no. And in that case, this is something where if there are any reds, then the teacher will have to schedule that virtual conference on their own. We also have added the home language. So if there is a language other than English, you will want to use the language line in calling the parents. As you look through the spreadsheet, once you go through and fill in your information, you'll see there are tabs along the bottom. And the tabs along the bottom will help in identifying, well, what are all of those students that will need conferences in math? And those will be listed here. The next tab looks at, well, how many students have we identified that will need a phone call? And they will automatically populate here. And the same with ELA conferences, ELA phone calls, social studies conferences, social studies phone calls, etc. As you go through the spreadsheet, if you have any questions, you can refer back to this here form, that timeline, and there is a link here on directions on how to navigate that spreadsheet. So there is more information beyond this video where you can look to see, well, what is it I need to do in order to complete this spreadsheet. We've also created a planning document. This may be helpful, it may not be helpful, but when you click on it, you'll see it first asks you to make a copy because we don't want everyone in the same planning document. We want everyone to have their individual document. And in this document, it just gives a list of the dates and different things that are due on those particular dates or things that you may want to complete by that date. So this is a nice document for those of you who like to print something out, see the dates and see all the different things that need to happen. And also to see, well, where is the time coming from? That is all on this document. And again, I received this. I found this document on the timeline sheet right here, create your own planning calendar. In this, we also have highlighted, well, where is the time coming from? There are not going to be any of our team meetings, CLT meetings, or department meetings for the next few weeks so that you have opportunities to complete the spreadsheet, make phone calls, make your video, and have those conferences with parents. As you contact parents, please log your information in Synergy. There is help. As you go through and you call parents, please log your information. I went a little too far. Sorry about that. You're going to log your information in Synergy. There's a link here that gives directions on how to log your information in Synergy. Counselors will be scheduling those conferences of students that are identified or prioritized in red in 3 or more classes. If a student is only identified or prioritized in red for one class, then that teacher is responsible for contacting the parent and setting up a time to have a virtual conference. If you have questions about how to create a video for those students who are identified in green, here are some directions from Mr. Costner and Ms. Kell from last year on how to create that video and how to post that on Canvas. When we look at the timeline of things to be done the week of the 18th, you're given, again, COT time, team time to continue calling parents, setting up times to conference with parents, so that they can get that feedback of what's happening in the classroom. On Thursday, October 21st, this is still, again, time to contact parents, have those virtual conferences, look for those invites from counselors for conferences for the team. And then on the 22nd, our conference day, again, this is the day you want to complete all of those conferences of those students that are prioritized in red. So all of those conferences should happen by October 22nd. This gives you that 2-week window before the end of the marking period to make sure parents are notified of students who may be in jeopardy of failing. If you're not done with the phone calls by October 22nd, you do have another week where you can continue to make those phone calls. And those times, again, during student discussion time, that week of October 25th, you can continue making phone calls to those parents who are identified or are prioritized in yellow. You'll have until October 29th to finish up those phone calls for those students who are identified or prioritized in yellow. And the quarter does end on November 1st. It may be the 2nd, but I believe it's the 1st. Here is a list of where the time is coming from so that you can complete these tasks. And at the bottom, we have our parking lot of questions and answers. And in this document, this shows a list of questions and those answers that were raised from last year. This first one is, how do you log calls in Synergy? Answer with some diagrams to help with that process, and some other questions. If you have questions that are not already answered there, you can type those questions here, and the coaches will review this and type in some type of response. Please keep in mind as you're prioritizing students that your priority groups are based on academics and not behaviors. If you are having problems with behaviors, we do have a flow chart that could be followed. But our conference right now is to focus on the academics. It is possible that some students may not be performing well because of their behaviors, but the focus of your conversation should be on the academics, and then you can talk about the behaviors within that conversation. As you go through your conferences and you create those questions, we want you to think about the empathy interview format. We've put together a little guide that you can use to follow as you're going through your conferences. You don't have to ask every single question in this exact order, but this is just a guide as you go through. Explain to the parents why you are meeting, just to let them know what's going on. You want to find out a little bit about the student from their parent, so ask them some questions to find out more about the child. And then after you have found out some information, you can give them what concerns you may have, and then talk about how you are going to support them in their instruction. Once you talk about the how, then you want to talk about some type of plan of what is going to happen, and then ways of how you will follow up. This will help students and teachers in the long run if we know that there is a plan and there is some type of follow-up to that plan. Okay, so now let's wrap this up. Let's go back to our original slide, looking at this timeline. You're going to categorize your students. Try to finish all of those students you feel need to be prioritized as red by this Thursday, October 7th. Finish up all students by next week, Tuesday, October 12th. Start calling parents sometime next week for those that you have identified as yellow, and start scheduling those conferences for those parents who may need it by October 8th, or start after October 8th. If you have any questions or anything, please contact one of the coaches. That's Julie Tagle. Joanna Washington, Dina Golub, and Kristen Law. And we are always here to help.